and it is really strongly linked to living a longer and healthier life. The reason it's so powerful is that muscle isn't just there to move you around. It behaves almost like an organ in its own right. It sends out signals that improve your hormones and keep your blood vessels healthy and support nearly every major organ in your body. There are literally, and I mean literally, hundreds of large studies showing just how protective muscle is as you get older. And yet, your doctor will almost never ever mention it. So, in this video, I'm going to give you 7 proven ways to build muscle faster, covering how to train, how to move, how to eat, how often to do it, and how to rest and recover properly as well, all aimed at building real, lasting strength for the decades ahead. For anyone who hasn't come across me before, my name's Alex. I'm an emergency medicine doctor in the UK, and I've spent the last 10 years seeing the problems that the right habits could have prevented in the first place, which is why I make these videos. So if you find this video helpful, then the best thing that you can do to support me is to subscribe, also give the video a like, and give it a hype as well. All of that takes a couple of seconds. It's completely free. And it really, really does help me to keep making these videos for you every single day. So before we get into the 7 ways to actually build muscle, we need to set the goal properly here, because most people aim far, far, far too low. So when you're building muscle for longevity, the aim isn't just to preserve the muscle that you've got, it is to build more of it every single year, so that instead of just slowing down the decline, you actively reverse it and arrive at the age of 70 much stronger than you were at the age of 60. So picture a graph of your muscle across the years. For most people, that line drifts very steadily downhill from middle age onwards. Slowing that loss flattens the line out, which is already a good result. But what we're really after here is to bend that line the other way and then to make it go upwards, so that you're laying down more protective muscle and getting stronger as the years pass, rather than just plateauing out or getting weaker. So, having said all of that, let's get into the 7 points here. So, the first and most important way to build muscle is to train with what we call progressive overload, which simply means gradually asking your muscles to do a little bit more over time. And the reason why this is important is that your muscles only really grow when you challenge them beyond what they're used to, because when that happens, they adapt by becoming back a bit bigger and a bit stronger, ready for the next time that you ask them to do more. It's a bit like the skin on a gardener's hands, where the more rough work they do, the tougher and thicker that skin becomes to cope, and your muscles respond to that extra demand in exactly the same way. In practice, this means slowly adding a little bit more weight or a couple of more reps every week or 2. And what that looks like specifically for you will depend entirely on you. Somebody younger or already strong might be adding, noticeable weight every week, while somebody older or just starting out might just add a single rep compared to what they did 4 weeks ago. And both of those people are doing exactly the right thing. The point is that every week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks or so, you want to feel like you're able to do a little bit more, either, like I said, a bit more weight or a few more reps, so that in a year's time, you can look back on this time now and know for certain that you're stronger. A really good way of making sure that this actually happens is to write down each of your sessions. So write down the exercises that you did and how many reps or how much weight you managed, and then aim just to add, one small tiny thing next time or the week after. Because even just a single extra rep repeated over months and years adds up to an enormous amount. The second way is to build your training around these big compound movements, the ones that work several muscle groups all at the same time. Now, to understand why compound movements are so powerful, just think about a very simple bicep curl, which really only trains 2 or 3 muscles at once. The biceps, along with a couple of the smaller muscles in your upper arm and your forearm, the brachialis and the brachioradialis muscles. Now, compare that with a rowing movement where you're sat on the floor or on a bench and you're rowing a big weight towards you on the cable machine, or you're bent over and rowing a big barbell up towards your hips. And that movement trains all of those same arm muscles, plus the big muscles of your back, your lats, and your rhomboids, and the muscles across the backs of your shoulders, your rear delts, all in a single movement. Big biceps for the mirror and for your confidence are great, but that isn't the aim here, because what we actually want to do is to build the most muscle possible and get the biggest return on your time and effort. And that is exactly what these compound movements deliver. So you want to be focusing on exercises like squats and hip hinges, like deadlifts or presses or press-ups or rows or shoulder presses, anything that requires a couple of joints to be moving at the same time. Whereas a bicep curl is just one joint moving. If you move multiple joints, it means a lot more muscle moving at the same time. And obviously, even though a gym and weights are better and probably easier to train these sorts of muscles, you can do this just with your body weight at home by doing squats and lunges and press-ups and using some resistant bands for some rows as well. And there are loads and loads of videos on YouTube from other people that can show you how to do these sorts of movements safely. The third point is all about protein, which is the raw material that your body uses to build and repair muscle. And this matters even more as we get older, because our muscles become slightly resistant to the signal that protein sends out, something that we call anabolic resistance. Now, the reason we say to eat more protein as you get older is because our muscles get a little bit hard of hearing with age. So the message that protein sends has to be said a bit louder, which in practice simply means eating more of it. So a sensible target for most people who are lifting weights or doing body weight work is at least 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein for every kilo of body weight each day. And just as importantly, you want to spread that across your meals rather than saving it for the evening or in one big protein shake. You want to be aiming for a decent serving of protein at every single meal from foods like eggs and fish and meat and dairy, or beans and lentils as well. And all of this gives your body the steady stream of building blocks that it needs to turn all of this effort and hard training into actual new muscle. Okay, so the fourth way is to actually make sure that you're eating enough overall and eating well as well, because you simply can't build muscle on an empty stomach. Well, you can, but you need to be eating enough calories to actually convert that effort into muscle. So if you're sitting in a very heavy calorie deficit, then your body will struggle to lay down new muscle tissue no matter how hard you train. So when you're actively trying to build muscle, you want to be eating at least enough to hold on to your weight and keep your weight steady, and ideally get most of your food, if not all of it, from whole, natural foods that bring the vitamins and the minerals and the fiber that your recovery depends on. The other thing to mention about building muscle is that you honestly do not need to load up on carbohydrates in the meal before your workout, which is exactly what I used to believe back in medical school when I was rowing. These days, I often train in the morning after breakfast, and that breakfast is very often just an omelette with some asparagus or mushrooms and a handful of nuts and seeds. So there are pretty much zero carbs or very few carbs at all. And if anything, I honestly feel better than if I'd had a bowl of granola or some toast before the workout. There is enough glucose and glycogen in my body to get me through that workout without carb loading before. So it helps to think of your food as the other half of your workout, because the workout session breaks the muscle down a bit And it's the good food across the day that builds it back up stronger and bigger than it was before. So point number 5 is all about regularity, because muscle is built through repetition over time and never ever in just one big burst occasionally. And the research is fairly clear that training each muscle group around 2 to 3 times a week, that is the target, works far better than just hammering it hard just once a week. So a simple full body routine a couple of times a week, or an upper and lower body split, this suits most people really well. But the real secret here is consistency held over months and years rather than just weeks, because the people who build seriously impressive strength later on in life aren't the ones who train ferociously for a fortnight and then drift away. They're the ones who keep turning up week after week and actually enjoy it as well. What we're really doing here is building a habit that you keep for the rest of your life, literally for the rest of your life. That is the whole game here, because every single one of the best results in health comes from simple things done consistently over a very long time. A steady routine that you actually stick to will always beat a perfect plan that you abandon by February. The 6th one is something that a lot of very keen people tend to get wrong, and this is all about giving your body proper rest and recovery. The thing to understand about building muscle is that your muscles don't actually grow during the workout itself. They grow in the hours and days afterwards while you recover, when your body repairs itself and then builds the tissue back a bit bigger and stronger. And that is exactly why sleep is so important, since a great deal of that repair happens overnight, and also why you need rest days in between hard sessions for the same muscle groups. This is also the point where people often ask me how often they should be training, and the real answer is that everybody is different. These days, I generally train around 4 or 5 days a week, but to actually build muscle, I'd say you need at least 2 really good resistance sessions a week as a minimum, on top of your aerobic exercise like your daily brisk walking and a couple of HIIT sessions as well. That is the sort of optimum target, really. But obviously more is generally better, up to around 5 or 6 sessions a week, although clearly very few people are going to be actually achieving that. Anything less than 2 solid sessions a week will probably only preserve what you've already got rather than building the extra. So if you can manage 3 a week, then that is brilliant. And as we get older, we recover more slowly. So listen to your body. And if a muscle group is still really sore afterwards, then just leave it and then train something else, or simply rest. Enjoy your day off, because pushing on through that sort of pain just leaves you tired and far more prone to the injuries that wipe out all of your progress. And if you feel really daunted by anything I've just said about training multiple times a week, and there's no way you could ever achieve that, either because of your age, or perhaps your frailty score, or just not being used to exercise, then just do what you can. If all you can manage is 15 or 20 minutes once or twice a week, then that is fantastic. That is clearly going to be better than what you're currently doing. Nothing is black and white. Everything is a spectrum. So even if you're just a little way through that spectrum, then that is amazing. And just, start where you are. Don't worry about anybody else. Just do what you can. Now, the 7th and final way is to listen to your own body and treat all of this as a lifelong project rather than a sprint. So over the age of 50, the single biggest thing that derails progress and stops people is injury. So it really pays to warm up properly and build your weights up gradually. And also learn the difference between the good kind of muscle tiredness and the very sharp warning of a joint or a tendon that just isn't too happy. Some weeks you'll feel strong and you can push on, and other weeks, when life gets in the way or you have a run of bad sleep, it is perfectly sensible to ease back and let yourself recover. And that flexibility is exactly what keeps you in the game for decades. Yes, muscle does build a bit more slowly as we get older, but it absolutely still builds. So rather than chasing the heaviest weight in the room today, just keep your eyes on the prize that really matters, which is still being strong and capable and independent 20 or 30 years from now. So those are the 7 proven ways to build muscle faster. Training with progressive overload, focusing on the big compound movements, eating enough protein and spreading it out throughout the day, fueling the work with whole food, training regularly and consistently, respecting your recovery, and also listening to your body for the long haul. Do these 7 things and you won't just slow the clock down, you'll actually turn it back a bit. You'll arrive at the age of 70 and beyond the age of 70 much stronger and steadier and more confident, most importantly, than the version of you watching this today. Out of everything that I talk about across this channel, building muscle might be the single thing that pays you back the most in your independence, in your protection from disease, and in how capable and confident you feel in your own body every single day. Why don't you pick just one of these to begin with this week, maybe today, and make a real start and just let it build from there? The hardest part is just starting. So why don't you do something right now as this video ends and just get rid of that hardest part? Remember, the strength that you put in now is a gift to the person that you'll be in 20 years. So start giving that gift today.